$9.5 million in loss. I didn't think they could prove that. The stuff that they're saying isn't true. Wiretaps? They had wiretap? Fuck it, I'll go to trial. It said 32 years to life. The judge disagrees with everything she says and gives me 26 years and 4 months. I get 26 years, I go to federal prison. I walk out into the day room, the main room. The guys are running around. They start screaming lockdown. Some guys got stabbed up in the yard. And I was like, holy shit. He goes, hey, nobody dying. They just stabbing them up.
All right, so Matt, you're on the ground. FBI has you there. Like, are you Matt Cox? And you're like, yeah, I'm Matt Cox. Why'd you give up so easy, man? Like, why didn't you keep it going? You have so many identities.
I mean, because I knew they were going to take me downtown and fingerprint me. So I knew they didn't raid my house and pull up with, a bunch of SUVs and a bunch of, Secret Service agents. And now the police are showing up. Like the cops are blocking off each side of the street. Like this didn't happen for them to go, oh, wow, you know what? I'm sorry, it's not you. And let me go because I say, oh, wait, I'm not Matt Cox. And I pull out a Walter Holcomb passport or ID and they go, oh my God, we got the wrong guy. Like they're going to fingerprint me no matter what. So
you had some plastic surgeries already by this point. You'd had some like hair follicle replacement. Like, is that
I
accurate?
had 2 hair transplants. I had a nose job. I had they called it a mini facelift. What else did I have? I had my teeth done. I had liposuction. Yeah, I mean, I had little, but it's still you.
Right.
Your
your eyes don't change, your body didn't change a whole lot. But did they know what you kind of looked like at that point?
Yeah, they had they had multiple photographs
of you currently.
No, but they had one photograph of me currently from Becky, but it was like a selfie with the two of us.
Oh, gotcha.
When they caught Becky, she gave them that, but it wasn't like it's me. Yeah, they knew it was me.
Sure,
there was no. I mean, there was one of the agents was kind of like, I don't know if it, he was unsure, but the one guy was like, no, it's definitely him.
Yeah.
Definitely him.
So where do they take you? Do they take you down to county jail? They take you to FBI, like interrogation room? Where?
Well, they took me to the Secret Service's field office in downtown Nashville, and they questioned me. But I told them I wanted a lawyer, and first what happened was they sat me in the room for a few hours, and the agent, I think she drove from Atlanta to try to talk to me, and I ended up, I think I ended up saying, I think I need to talk to a lawyer. And they fingerprinted me. They did all the processing. They got me a hamburger, and yeah, then that was it. So then they moved me from there to, I forget what state. It was another state where they put me on like a U.S. Marshals holdover.
Yeah.
And that's like they rent that's the Marshals rent a place from the county jail, and they have a special area of the jail they hold you in. So I was held there for a week, and then I was transferred to, I think, Memphis, and then I went to Oklahoma City and was put on Con Air. Was there for a week or two. They put me on Con Air. They flew me to.
It was Nicolas Cage on that flight?
No, it's not like that at all. It's a commercial. No? It's just a shitty commercial plane they bought. There's no duct tape or anything on the wings, or I don't think there was. I didn't see any duct tape.
Cyrus wasn't there.
No, people say like, oh, it's nothing like that, bro. It's a regular plane. And
you just ruined the movie for me, just for the record.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's not like the movie. So anyway, they moved me to. I eventually end up in Atlanta, and I talked to my lawyer, and she's like, your only choice, you can plead guilty and not cooperate, and whatever, you probably get 30 years, or you can cooperate, and I can probably get you 12, 14 years, and then we can work, if you cooperate, and that leads to, well, she didn't even say this, she just said cooperate, and they'll consider it substantial, call it substantial assistance. You can get your sentence reduced by providing substantial assistance.
Right.
which means cooperate.
Sure.
So they said, she said, you can do that. Or she said, you can go to trial, lose at trial, and get 30 years. You can plead guilty and get 12 years, which is roughly what she calculated I should get. And then she said, and cooperate, and we can get that trimmed down to maybe half that. You could be out of here in 4 years.
Sure.
3 or 4 years,
That
5
sounded
years.
pretty good at the time.
Sounds pretty fucking good, right?
That didn't happen, though.
That's not what happened at all. So I said, well, one, I can't go to trial. I'm extremely guilty. And I didn't want to do 12 years. And the problem was that everybody had already cooperated against me.
Yeah.
Like Becky had cooperated against me. Everybody that was involved in my crime, right? Rudy, Kelly, Dave. I mean, they've all cooperated.
So you were good to snitch.
I'm good with snitching.
There was just nobody left to snitch on.
Right. At this point, I'm good to snitch because I realized that the first time I didn't cooperate, everybody that I didn't cooperate against lined up to cooperate against me.
You'd already learned your lesson.
Right. So I'm done with that. We're done with that. I'm going to fucking cut everybody's throat. The problem was I cooperate. By the time I've cooperated, it's getting into 2007 and the mortgages are starting to be an issue.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so banks are starting to kind of go belly up. People are talking about all these corrupt mortgages and corrupt this and corrupt that. It's not good. And so I meet with the FBI and Secret Service and I cooperate. I tell them everything that happened. This is what I did. This is what, but they know everything. And then I get what's called my pre-sentence report. My pre-sentence report doesn't say 12 to 14 years, which is what my lawyer was saying. My PSI says, it said 32 years to life.
Yeah.
And then I start saying, I might as well go to, you just gave me the max.
Right.
You can only give me 32
You have nothing
years.
to lose at that point. Like,
Right,
why
I'll go
the
to
hell
trial.
would you not just, let's go?
Fuck it, I'll go to trial.
Because at least then maybe you get a jury that you could, because you're a pretty good con man, right?
Well, here's what I'm good at. What I figured I could do at the trial was at least I can explain that most of the stuff that they were saying, not most of, but some of the stuff that they're saying isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
Like at a plea, you can't do that. So at least then I can explain certain things didn't happen the way you're saying. I can, whatever. So they end up saying, okay, well, what don't you agree with? And we are getting into a little argument, and I end up getting them down to, like they said, there was $9.5 million in the loss. I didn't think they could prove that. If I went to trial, I could prove that I didn't get $9.5 million.
Right.
Like he got $400,000, he got $1.1 million, so I get him down to say about $6 million. And then I get them to drop some of the other enhancements because they give you enhancements. That's what gets you more time. So I get it down to like 26 years and 4 months. And I go to, and my lawyer's saying we can get it even lower in front of the judge because we can argue these enhancements and we'll get another 10 or 12 years knocked off. Okay. She seemed confident. So we get in front of the judge. She makes these arguments. The judge disagrees with everything she says and gives me 26 years and 4 months. Now, keep in mind, too, at this point.
And you thought, how much did you think you were going to get at that point?
12 years.
Oh, Jesus.
Because if you really read the enhancements, some of the enhancements that got me the additional 12 years didn't really apply.
Yeah.
So I had also allowed myself to be interviewed by Dateline NBC, right? Because Dateline had already done a 1 hour special on me.
Now, did you do that before you went into prison?
No.
This was after you already got your 26 years.
No. So I'm locked up in the U.S. Marshals holdover.
Oh, okay.
And before I got sentenced, the U.S. attorney said, I want him to be interviewed by Dateline. But Dateline had already done an interview. They'd interviewed a bunch of other people. They already did a 1 hour special, but they were going to recut it now that I had been caught and redo another 1 hour special. So they came into the jail and they interviewed me. I was in the U.S. Marshals holdover, not the federal prison. If you wait till the federal prison, you're not going to get on a camera. But the marshals would allow it. So I ended up getting interviewed by them. They recut it. They put out the interview again. So now there's 2 1 hour specials on me. And they said, if he does this, we'll consider it substantial assistance and reduce his sentence. So, but then just before I went into court, I'm supposed to get what's called a 5K1. And they go, yeah, we're not going to give him a 5K1 because we don't feel like we don't feel like that was enough.
Sure.
So, but you said you'd consider it substantial assistance, and they said we did consider it, and it's not enough.
Oh, they considered it.
They did consider it.
Yeah.
They
They didn't lie.
That's when I realized like how important the definition of a word is.
Right.
You know,
Words all have meanings.
I was like, wow, you know what? That's true. They did say we'd consider it substantial assistance, and we did consider it, and it's not.
But they didn't just do that to you one time, right?
No, this happens again. So then I end up going to court. So I go to court. They don't recommend. They're supposed to recommend a sentence reduction. They decide that wasn't enough. We're not going to recommend it. I get 26 years. I go to federal prison. So the 26 years really sucked. That was a bad day.
What was the first day like? When you got off, I met you went on a bus probably, right?
What was the first day? What?
Yeah, like when you walked in the prison the very first day, what was going through your mind?
I mean, I was sent to a medium. So when I got to the medium, you know, like half the guys in the medium have bullet holes in them.
Yeah.
So it's 80% black guys, you know, that are not appreciative of the white guys.
Sure.
They do not like you. And so it's maybe on the whole compound, there's maybe 20 white guys on the compound. So it's made up, there's 20 white guys, 20% Mexican, 80% black guys. So it's like an 80-20. So let's say it's 80-17. Maybe there's 3% of white guys and others, a couple of Asians, you know, some Jewish guys in there. So it's a couple terrorists. And this is a medium. This is like a real prison. It's got 2 tiers. There's multiple layers. There's everything. It's exactly what you think of as a prison. So I get there. I walk in, and I get shown, hey, this is where your cell is. And I meet the guy in my cell. He's a Mexican guy, and he's like, hey, man, what's going on? And he's just kind of explaining, hey, look, this is your cell. Here's this. Here's that. Boom. We're talking. I go, okay. So I walk out into the day room, the main room, and I'm standing there, and they start screaming lockdown. And my cellie comes up to me, and guys are running around because they're trying to heat up their coffee before they get in their cells and grab stuff and go to the store, man, and get some soups. And, they don't know how long you're going to be locked down. So I'm just standing there, and finally my cellie comes up to me and goes, yo, we got to go in the cell. You got to come in the cell. And I'm like, okay, what happened? He said, oh, some guys got stabbed up in the yard. And I go, someone just got killed on the yard? And he goes, no, they just stabbed them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. He goes, hey, nobody dying. They just stabbing them up.
This was your first day.
This is my first day. Somebody got stabbed in the rec yard. So I go into the cell. I go in there. They lock us down. Then they count everybody. And then they come back. And then by that point, it's like 6 o'clock. And they open up the cells. And everybody goes to chow. Like nothing. And that's something that just kind of happens every once in a while. Or they have like a fight.
Sure.
And it happens so regularly at the medium that it doesn't really interfere with the normal course of operations. When something like that happens at the low, they'll lock you down for a week because happens so rarely. They don't really know how to handle it. But at the medium or the pen, they're just like, yeah, it's fine. Let them out for chow. No problem. Now, if somebody dies or something in the pen or really gets messed up, then they'll lock them down for months. But they're set up to be locked down for months. They're not set up to be locked down for months at the medium. So anyway, we go out, I eat. I end up having a cousin that's there. His name is Reese. I didn't know I had a cousin. So I'm there for 3 years. And what happens after I was there for a few months, I end up teaching the real estate class. They have a residential real estate class. It's called an ACE course, and the inmates teach these courses. So I end up teaching the real estate class. And so at some point I get contacted by American Greed, and I call my lawyer and I said, hey, I just got this letter from this TV show called American Greed. And she's like, yeah, I know, I got one too. And I already spoke to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor got one. She wants you to be interviewed. And she said that she'll consider it substantial assistance. I go, well, that's what she said last time.
Right.
And she goes, I know, but Matt, eventually, this is twice now. Like she'll give you something. She goes, and I have it in writing. She sent me an email. I said, send me the email. Send me the email. And still, it says consider it substantial assistance, and we'll put it together with everything else we have for Mr. Cox, and we'll use this towards a sentence reduction. Okay. So American Greed, I'm interviewed by American Greed. They put it out. A couple months later, comes out, and we go to the prosecutor and we say, hey, listen, can we reduce this guy's sentence? And the prosecutor says, it's just not enough.
Yeah.
It's just not enough. I don't know. Got to do 26 years. So then I end up going to the low. It's been 3 years at this point, and I'm starting to think I may have to do all this time. So I go to the low, start teaching the real estate class there, and I get contacted by a guy. So at this point, the Dodd-Frank Act has passed, right?
Sure.
And so all mortgage brokers in the nation have to take, I want to say it's like, I don't know what it is, 8 or 9, 7, whatever. Let's say it's 9 continuing credit hours every year to keep their licenses. Well, 3 hours of that's on ethics and fraud. And so this national company contacts me and contacts my attorney and the U.S. attorney and says, I want this guy Cox to help teach the national course. And they said they think it's a great idea. And the prosecutor says, if you'll do it, we'll consider substantial assistance.
You hadn't heard that before, had you?
No. So I was like, that sounds great. So I write this 9,000 word course with him. He comes to see me a bunch of times. He ends up teaching the course. We get a bunch of letters together, and then we petition the court to reduce my sentence. And the U.S. attorney comes forward and says, it's just not enough.
Oh, my gosh.
So at that point, I end up going to this lawyer who's there. His name was Frank Amadeo.
Was it a real lawyer or another inmate?
Well, he's a disbarred lawyer. He's another inmate, but he was
a legit lawyer before he went in.
At some point.
Yeah.
And he was there for stealing like $200 million from the federal government, for embezzling like $200 million from the federal government. Really, he was just withholding taxes. So from his many companies, he's like a venture capitalist. So anyway, and then he ended up getting sentenced, and he got like 22 years. But he was in prison helping guys with their legal work. And so he decided he was going to help me. The story's much more complicated than this, but because he's really kind of an insane person. But he ends up helping me, and he files paperwork with the government. So, well, first, let me tell you, what I did was I contacted 3 attorneys on the outside. One of them was T.I.'s attorney, T.I. the rapper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Contact him, and he says, there's no way to get you a sentence reduction.
Oh, my gosh.
I contact 2 other attorneys. They go, yeah, that can't be done, not in your district. I'm in like the 5th Circuit or something. I don't know. It's a horrible district. And it's very clear that the only person that has the ability to reduce your sentence is the U.S. attorney. You can't force them to do it. It's a done deal. That's in that district. That's it. So I go to Frank, and Frank says, yeah, no, I can get it done. And I said, okay. And so he files the paperwork, and he bickers back and forth through the courts with them for the next 6 months. And then finally, they end up saying, okay, we will reduce your sentence. And so they bring me back to court, and they reduce my sentence. Government wants to reduce it by 40 months. My attorney is asking for, I forget how many, 180 months, like 15 years or something. And the judge says, I'm not going to, that's too much. And the 40 months isn't enough. And he says, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him, he ends up giving me, 7 years off my sentence. I don't know, what is that? Like, that's like 84 months, right? He has to be like close to, it was like 81 months or 80, whatever. I'm not going to, whatever, 7 years. So he says, I'm going to give 7 years.
So now you're down to 19 years from 26.
19 years and 4 months. Yeah.
4 months.
Yeah. So what are you going to do? So, and by the way, the FBI and the Secret Service, who were supposed to be looking into all of the other people that had cooperated against me, they dropped those cases because the entire economy is collapsing.
Yeah.
And they have bigger fish to fry. Like, we could chase these cases down that are for these people that help Cox and arrest them and prosecute them. Or we go after this bank that lost $500 million. So they don't really chase these people down, and they drop the case. So I don't have any chance of snitching on somebody to, not that I didn't snitch, but it didn't result in my sentence being reduced.
Yeah.
What resulted in my sentence being reduced was they gave me credit for they ended up being forced to give me credit for the interviews and the ethics and fraud course. So you're right. I'm down to 19 years. I've already done 6 years at this point. So I was like, I can do another 6 years, 7 years. And I'm walking the compound. I've been off, like, keep in mind too, everybody knows I went to court and came back with less time. So they all know I've ratted on somebody or something. Yeah. They don't really understand what I did. And it's hard to have that conversation. So instead it's like, oh, he cooperated, which is fine. It was a low. By that point, I'm in a low. So what ends up happening is I end up walking the compound with this guy named Ron Wilson. And I'll do this one. I'll wrap this one up. Ron Wilson was a Ponzi schemer, and he had gotten 19 and a half years for ripping off pension funds and churches. And I think the loss was $57 million, but I think the total scam was like $100 million. So he ended up getting, like I said, he got sentenced to 19 years. We're walking the compound, and he was cooperating against his co-defendants. And he kept telling me, even if they prosecuted his co-defendants, they weren't going to reduce his sentence. I said, oh yeah, they'll reduce it. And we went back and forth. He kept saying, nah, you don't understand, you don't understand. And eventually, at one point, he says, why do you keep saying I don't understand? What? He goes, oh, they think I hid Ponzi scheme money. I go, you didn't hide it, so don't worry about it. He keeps, you don't understand, you don't understand. They hate me. Okay. And then finally, one day, he ends up telling me he did hide Ponzi scheme money. He said it hit about $350,000. Okay, well.
Was it like buried near a tree and in the ground?
It wasn't buried. The previous money that he gave them was buried.
It sounds like a Shawshank Redemption.
Listen, he's a wild character. He's got an amazing story too, but we're not really on speaking terms at this point. So what happens is he tells me this, that his wife is holding a couple $100,000 and his brother's got like 30 grand or something. Like, it wasn't a lot of money, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So maybe a week or two later, I'm talking to my attorney trying to get her to send me the transcripts. Like, I completely discarded what he said.
Yeah.
Because I thought, they're not going to reduce my sentence. They didn't want to reduce my sentence before. They're not going to do it for $350,000. And that's going to cause me all kinds of problems anyway. So what happens is I end up talking to my attorney, and she said, oh, yeah, I'll send you the transcripts. I'm sorry, I forgot. No problem. And then she's sitting there, and she's like, anything going on in there? I was like, nah, not really. And she said, nothing's happening? And I went, no. I said, something weird happened. Listen to this. And I tell her what Ron Wilson said. She goes, oh, wow, let me look into that. And I was like, okay. I don't think I'll ever hear from her again. I couldn't even, took me forever to get her to send me the fucking transcripts. So what happens is a week later, a CO comes up to me and goes, Cox, you got to go see SIS. And that's like their internal security. I'm like, okay. So I go see SIS. I'm like, what's going on? And the guy says, sit down. I got to put you on the phone with this guy. And who is it? And it's a Secret Service agent. He says, I understand where Ron Wilson hid Ponzi scheme money. And I go, oh, wow, I'm going to need something in writing saying you guys will reduce my sentence. And he says, yeah, no problem. So he gets me a letter a week or two later. It says from the U.S. attorney saying that if I provide them information that leads to an arrest or recovers significant amount of money, they'll consider it substantial assistance. So I say, okay, yeah, here's what happened. And I explained to him what happened, but that's all I know. And they were like, okay. So they end up calling his wife and his brother in, and the wife gives up $350,000 in precious metals and cash. And the brother walks in and gives them $500,000 $150,000 in cash. It ends up being about $500,000. They indict the two of them. They re-indict Ron Wilson, bring him back to court. He gets another 6 months added onto his sentence for obstruction of justice. The two of them end up getting probation. They get like a year probation. They actually got community service. Really, they both got community service. One got like 20 hours and one got like 100. I think his wife got 100 because she lied to him the first time. Anyway, so once again, the government doesn't want to give me anything. We have to file. I go back to Frank. Frank files the motion. The government ends up saying, okay, we'll reduce your sentence by 5 years. And they cut it by another 5 years. At this point, when that hits the system, I got like 2 years. I got like 18 months left. So and they give me 7 months of halfway house. So I end up walking out after just shy of 13 years in prison, basically 13 out. Let's round up. 13 years in prison. And when I walk out, so what I'd been doing in the meantime while I was there was I had written a memoir about myself, right? My memoir. Because everybody kept saying, bro, there's all these programs on you. You were in Fortune magazine. You were in this, there's hundreds, there's whatever. There's like 50, 60 articles. You were on Dateline. You should write a memoir. And so I ended up writing a memoir. I didn't know how to write a memoir. I ordered a book, a couple of books, like How to Write Memoirs for Dummies, that sort of thing. And I'd read some memoirs, and I was reading a lot at that point. And, I have a learning disability, so it's not easy for me, but I got better at it. And I realized that I'm a good storyteller. So I ended up writing stories writing story. I ended up writing my story, a memoir. I ended up getting a literary agent. And you got to think, to do any of this from inside a prison is impossible.
Sure. I mean,
I have no
much
access.
More difficult than anything else.
I don't have access to the internet. I'm writing letters. Nobody writes letters. So I'm writing letters. I end up getting a literary agent. And at the same time, the literary agent comes to see me. There's this guy who came on the compound named Ephraim Deveroli. Ephraim Deveroli is the guy that Jonah Hill plays in the movie War Dogs. So I end up writing his memoir from inside the prison. And I write his memoir, and then I meet this kid named Doug Dodd. He's like, you got to write my story, bro. I got a good story. I'm like, okay. So I write his story, and I didn't even want to write his story. I was like, you don't have any press. There's no newspaper articles. You didn't steal a lot of money. You don't have anything. But it was a unique story because it was a bunch of white kids in high school that had started kind of a doctor shopping, and they were doing hitting the pill mills in Florida. And then when they graduate, then they were all on the wrestling team. So when they graduate, all of them go to get wrestling scholarships throughout the country. Dodd stays and keeps running the operation and ships the pills all over the place, right?
Yeah.
They're a bunch of clean-cut, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white kids that are selling drugs. You know what I'm saying? It was such a weird thing because, everybody else I had met, all the other drug dealers were all black guys, right? Or Hispanic or whatever. And they're not really selling oxys at that time. This is during the pill mill epidemic.
Sure.
So I thought, well, that's kind of unique. I thought, you know what? Maybe if I could get them into rolling, if I could get you an article or some publicity, maybe I could get a book deal. He said, you think you could do that? I said, I don't fucking know what I can't know. But I can try. I have the time. So he's like, oh, okay. When I started writing his article and these guys' other articles, I still had like 20 years to go. This was before I got my sentence cut.
Yeah, you had a couple hours to spare.
I got some time.
Yeah.
I could put some time into some projects that may go nowhere. And I liked writing. I liked writing these guys' stories. I liked crafting the stories. What do I focus on? What do I mention? How do I tie these things together? That sort of thing. And I liked being able to order the documents, right? I can order your transcripts. I can order your indictment. I can order the Freedom of Information Act. I can get your FBI 302s, the DEA 6s, like all of these things, these documents in, so I can really put together a story that the guys that I'm writing about don't even know. Like they're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's the this is the affidavit that the DEA gave the judge in order to get the wiretaps." Wiretaps? They had wiretaps? I'm like, I got fucking 16 pages here. Yeah, there's some wiretaps. Like, what are you talking about? There's no, you didn't know that? Then, of course, you turn around and you order the actual full-length wiretaps. 30 pages, 150 pages. So, but you can do all this, and it's free because I'm an inmate.
Yeah.
So I'm ordering these documents. I'm putting together these stories, and that gave me the ability to write the story, not just what you're telling me, but give a 360-degree version of it, because I can also write from law enforcement's perspective. And if they had articles, I can pull excerpts from the articles. So I end up writing these stories, right? Like I wrote a book for Dodd. I wrote a book for Ephraim Deveroli. A guy named Marcus Schrinker, I wrote a book for on him. The first two were like memoirs. I start writing these stories, and then I start writing synopses, which are like a really long article. But so anyway, with Dodd, I end up writing a bunch I end up writing a synopsis of his story, and I send it to like 7 or 8 reporters. One of those reporters, a couple of them come back and say they like the story. Can I wait to do the story? One guy said I can get on it right away. And he wrote for Rolling Stone. And I said, okay, well, let's do it. And so a few months later, we ended up getting him in Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone wrote an article about Doug Dodd. And they talks about me being his writing partner and contacting the whole thing. So
now, were you making anything off any of these guys, or were they giving you some hostess treats or?
Well, what they do is they sign over they attach their life rights to my project.
Yeah.
So that I'm like, I'm going to write an article about you. I said, and I would tell them when I get out, what I said was I'm going to start a website called InsideTrueCrime.com and put the story on the website. And eventually I'm going to get an article written about me having this website, writing these stories, and maybe we can option your life rights. I mean, and what are they going to say? They've been in prison 12 years. They've been telling their story for 12 years. Nothing's ever happened. This is their only shot.
Right.
But you have to attach your life rights to the story.
Now, but let's talk about this. You were in mortgage. You were in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't in the film industry. You weren't in the entertainment industry at that point. Signing over life rights and things like that. Like that is not like just an average thing that most people would know. So how did you figure out that was a route?
I figured it out because my literary agent had talked to me about it, and he was shopping my book at the time, which never went anywhere. He ended up dying. But he kind of was talking to me about it. And when I got Doug Dodd into Rolling Stone magazine, the reporter optioned his life rights. And so I got paid, and Dodd got paid as a part of the option. Because we were up on with the we were a part of that option.
Yeah.
So I get a check, right? It was like $7,000 or something. And then as a result of that article, I ended up getting a book deal for Dodd. That was $35,000. They gave me a $3,500 advance, which is nothing, but in prison, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a ton at that point.
But so I'm in prison making money off this, and I'm realizing like got a lot of guys like Dodd. Dodd doesn't even have the best story.
Yeah.
So and at this point, Deveroli's got a literary agent which was my literary agent. They're shopping the deal. They're trying to get a deal. So it's like, this is starting to happen, right? Like, and that literary agent is paying me to write these stories at this point. He's sending me money for True Links and that sort of thing. So I'm getting paid. And now the other inmates are knowing what's happening. Like they're all walking around with Rolling Stone magazine, and it talks about how I'm writing a book for this kid, and
they're all starting to see it. So they all want to talk to you about their stuff.
Yeah, you got the fucking guards walking around going, "Yo, Cox, I read your article in Rolling Stone magazine." I'm like, "Oh, cool." So now that everybody's coming to me, bro, I got an amazing story, bro. You got to talk to my cellie. He's got an amazing story. So now I start writing synopses, and these guys are attaching their rights to the synopses. And I've got somebody on the outside that's starts a website. She starts putting these stories on the website, and I end up deciding what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect a bunch of these stories, and when I get out, and keep in mind, as I'm writing, boom, my time just got cut by 7 years. Boom, my time just got cut by 5 years. And so by the time I leave, I've written like almost 22 stories.
Yeah.
And so just before I got out of prison, guys are coming up to me saying, "You got to do a podcast when you get out, bro. You're a great storyteller." And I was like, "What's a podcast?" Because when I got arrested, YouTube was a year old. I'd never been on it. And people were basically, what YouTube was people were putting their home movies on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or funny videos where somebody falls down because it's icy outside.
No, there was no TikTok. There wasn't Facebook wasn't rocking.
Facebook had been out a year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It'd been-
MySpace was still
MySpace was
Play
kicking ass. It was amazing.
It's probably where you met all your girlfriends.
Coolest fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
What I end up doing is guys are coming to me telling me about true crime podcasts, trying to explain it to me. I don't really understand it. What's happening? What are you talking about? What's a podcast?
Sure.
So I figured I'll look into it when I get out. They're like, no, bro, true crime's huge in the podcast industry. Like somebody sent me an article one time. It was like the top 20 podcasts, and like 12 of them were true crime. And it's like an ex-FBI agent, goes over whatever stories, this happened, just
People love it. People love true crime.
right. But I didn't realize that. And they're like, you can do this. So I'm like, okay. So I get out, I get to the halfway house, and I start thinking, I figured I'll go to the halfway house, I'll try and save some money, and then I figured I'd get like a 1-bedroom apartment or go to like a boarding house, rooming house. And I figured I'd just try and figure out how to start a true crime podcast.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything about it. I was watching some videos on it while I was in the halfway house. There was a series, the main series that everybody talks about. That was like the most popular one. It was called Series. No, it was called Serial.
Serial. Yeah.
It was called Serial, and it was super popular. And it was about a woman who's she's investigating. It's a journalist that's investigating this young kid who's been convicted of murdering his girlfriend, and he got like 30 years or 40 years or something like that. And he's in prison. So I start listening to that. It's heavily edited. The music. I mean, it's just a great podcast. It's like 12 parts. So I'm listening to it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do this. This is great.
But you're in a halfway house.
I'm in a halfway house.
So what are you thinking about, like studio and
maybe or
cameras?
Well, I'm starting to think is you got to get out and you got to connect with a production company.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You have to talk to a production company, and then they put the money into it, and they help you make it, and then they get a part of it.
Like, somebody was going to bring you a golden spoon because your story was great. Is that what like somebody was going to bring you a golden spoon and help you do this thing?
Of course,
because you
I
had a
thought
great story.
they'd help me. Of course. The truth is like they're not going to help you.
Right.
They're all spinning and lying, and they're all jockeying for position, but I had a buddy who knew a guy who ran a podcast named Danny Jones. And he said, you should talk to this guy. He gets me his email. And I send Danny Jones an email. Danny calls me back. He says, hey, what's going on? I said, okay, here I'm in the halfway house. Here's what's going on. I've written a bunch of stories. I want to know how to do a podcast. Do you know anybody? And he's like, and I'd watched Danny's podcast. And he was like, it's not really my thing. I don't do that. I do a podcast. I do a YouTube podcast where I just interview people. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I said, this is what I want to do. And so he's like, I don't know. And he answers my question. Here's how you get paid. Here's what AdSense is. Here's what sponsors are. Here's how much you make. It's about watch time, not views, that sort of thing. So I start talking. Okay, cool. And then he says, well, why don't you come on the podcast, see if anybody's interested in your story? And I was like, I'm not really worried about my story. I'm not interested. I've already written a memoir. And, like I think I was thinking about putting it up on Amazon. Couldn't really figure that out. I'm working off of an iPhone. It's difficult. So I'm still in the halfway house. So when I get out of the halfway house, I told him when I got out of the halfway, I can't right now, I'm in the halfway house. So 7 months later, I'm out of the halfway house. And a couple months out of the halfway house, he calls me up. He says, listen, man, I had 2 guests fall through. I haven't put up a video in a week. I need you to come. I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, you told me that if I answered your questions, you would come on when you got out of the halfway house. I've answered all your questions. I was like, shit, that's right, I did.
What you should have said was, no. I told you I would consider
going
substantial
Yes.
cooperation.
I didn't know. I figured by the time I got out of prison, I said, I'm going to be a man of my word from now on. I'm just going to try and do the right thing, because not doing the right thing is definitely not worked out for me.
Yeah, you'd learn that.
I figured that out.
Did a few years to
I
remind
figured
you
that
of
out. They give you 26 years, you start to realize when society tells you, we don't want you with us anymore, around us anymore. You got to start thinking maybe it's me.
Yeah.
So I get out. I'm sorry. So I go and I do Danny's podcast. And after the podcast, Danny told me, you should start a podcast. I said, I don't really have the equipment. He's like, you saw what I just did. It's not that hard. You could just interview people. You could just tell stories. Tell your story in a podcast real slowly and do it. Drag it out. And I was like, yeah, but I'll run out of it in a couple months. And he's like, yeah, but you'll get a bunch of views. And by that point, you could start interviewing other people. And I was like, yeah, but I want to do a heavily edited podcast. I told him everything I wanted to do. And he's like, bro, that's going to take a lot.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. He said, I think what you can do is you can do a YouTube podcast. It doesn't cost you anything. I said, I don't even have the equipment, and I don't have the mics, and I don't have these. You got an iPhone. They got great cameras. And I said, bro, I'm not going to take a video with my iPhone. And he said, listen, I said, they don't sound good. He goes, no, they're amazing. He said, you could put it up. And in a year from now, when you've got all the things that you need to do a professional podcast that you want to do, he said, people will be able to look back and say, wow, I remember when you were doing videos with your iPhone. You've come so far. They'll get interested in you and they'll follow your journey. And I went, I'm not doing that. Because I'm a guy living in a rooming house who has no money, who's telling a guy who's running a professional podcast that's making his living on the podcast, I'm telling him he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Sounds intelligent.
Fucking arrogant. The arrogance. I just, I look back and I think, boy, if I could go back there, I wouldn't slap myself. Like I'd walk up and just full on just punch my fucking me right in the shit.
Yeah.
Be like, get your fucking act together. Like you're never going to pull this. You've got this grandiosity, this grandiose dream that's never going to happen. So I don't do it. I keep what I do instead. By the way, the podcast I did with Danny ends up getting like 2.4 million views. Then within 2 weeks of that, I'm on a plane and I go to Houston. They fly me out to Houston to do Patrick Bet David. That gets 2.6 million or something. Then I do Vlad. That gets a couple million. Then I do Soft White Underbelly. That gets 2.5 million. So I end up with like 10 million views and I don't have a podcast. I have no way to monetize it.
So people they're obviously searching for you when they see you on another podcast.
Yeah.
But there's nowhere for them to go.
No, what they're doing is they're going to my YouTube page, because everybody's got a YouTube page, right? If you got a YouTube account, they're going to my YouTube account and they're subscribing. So I have like over 1,000 people who have subscribed to a YouTube account that says Matt Cox on it. You know how many Matt Coxes there are?
Yeah, there's quite a few.
I can imagine how many people are subscribed to every single Matt Cox channel.
You blew some algorithms up for some people.
Yeah. So by the time I finally said, you know what, I realized after whatever it was, a year out of the halfway house almost, that I'm going to have to just start doing these videos with my iPhone. So I start doing these videos. And when I do the videos, the channel starts to grow. And I get it up to like, I always say I had like 10,000 subscribers or something, but I mean, Colby always says, my editor always says that when he came on board, I think he said it was like 20,000 or something. Anyway, the point is for 6 months, I just did little videos of me. And then I moved to a 1-bedroom apartment and I ended up meeting Colby. I have a buddy named Tyler who contacted me, said, what do you need to do this full time? I said, I need an editor that will come and work for nothing. And I'll give him the first couple $1,000s that the channel
Seems
makes.
like an easy task.
Right. And so I tell him that. And I gave him this little assignment thinking he'll just go off and we won't talk about it again. Because he was always asking me, you got to do this full time. You got to do this full time. You need to interview people. I'm like, bro, I'm making videos with my iPhone in the corner of a room that I'm renting.
Yeah.
The person renting the room next to me was a cop. So he says, what do you need? I said, okay, here's what I need. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll look into it. He finds a guy named Colby who lives, and not only does this guy have to be willing to work for nothing, he has to live close enough he can drive to my apartment to shoot the videos.
Yeah.
He has to edit it, upload it, make thumbnails, work the YouTube channel, and be 45 minutes away. Within a week, Tyler calls me back and says, this guy lives in Lakeland. It's 45 minutes away from you. Can you meet him at a breakfast place called First Watch? Sure. So I go and I meet him. I had screenshotted a bunch of the algorithm, analytics, and Colby looked at it, and Colby said, "I'm willing to run the channel." And I said, "Here's what I can pay. I can give you the first $2,000 a month, and then we, split it. We do a split after that." Because I was able, my bills were so cheap, I knew I could survive. And Colby has a kid and a wife.
Sure.
So Colby goes, "Okay, no problem." And so very quickly, he was willing to do it for nothing. Like he was making $300 a month. And very quickly, like the next check's like $600, then it's like $1,200, then it's like $1,800, then it's like $2,600, then it's the very quick. So within 3 months, he's getting paid a couple grand, which isn't enough, by the way. It's not enough for him to, because he had a good job that he quit. But he knew he didn't want to work that job the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this, where some people take a job, it's temporary till they can do what they want, but then they start making so much money at the job that they're forced to continue it because they can't bring themselves to start over and lose the lifestyle that the job is providing, and they end up doing a job they hate for the next 40 years.
I mean, it's just, I think in everything in business and everything with jobs, it's just one of the things you go through, right? Like there comes a certain point. So I think there's plenty of years where you can take a step back to get to the place that you want to be forward, right?
Right.
But like you and I talked about, there's going to come a point, if you do well at a job you're working, you're going to continue to get promotions. And at some point, you're going to be making too much money that you can't take that chance. You can't take that step back, right? Like it just makes it hard for some people.
Well, but Colby was smart enough to see that. And he had gone to his wife and said, "I don't want to do this anymore. And if I keep doing it," like they keep promoting me.
Yeah.
They're going to give me, at some point, I'm going to be making $350,000 and I'm going to hate my life and I'm going to want to get out of this, and we won't be able to get out of it. So he knew he was at that point where it was getting to that point. So he talked to his wife, and his wife said, "Quit. Do what you want to do." And so he started working with me. He very quickly started making minimal money. And we started working that job or that YouTube channel. And it did okay for 2 years. And then after a couple of years, it started doing really, really well. And to where it was paying all of his bills, all of my bills. And, I was able to move out, and we're working out of my living room. So I had a 1-bedroom. I moved from the rooming house to a 1-bedroom. We're running the studio out of the living room. I'm sleeping in, of course, my room. And then after about a year, my lease was up, and I moved to a house, and then in that house, in the living room, running the studio in the living room. And I remember when we had been working for the first year. Once the first year was wrapping up, I said, "Listen, Colby, I can extend my lease for a year." I said, "But based on the amount of money right now that the channel's making, I think we can double it in a couple months." And he goes, "How's that?" I said, "Right now we're putting out one video a week, about a 2-hour video." He goes, "Right." And I said, "We don't do Zooms, right? We don't do remotes." I said, "But if I start doing 2 remotes a week, even if they get less views, I think it will double the total amount of views that we get on the channel. Because even if people watch half as long on a remote, if I do 2 of them, it at least meets the same viewable hours as the in-person podcast." And he was like, "Okay, yeah, if you'll do that." So we signed up with a company called, it's called a StreamYard. And I started doing remotes. And within 3 months, the channel had doubled, really quadrupled. Because I told him, if I do that, I'm going to move. And if I do that, I'll stop. I was painting for a living, and I'll stop painting. And so he was like, "Do that then. Let's do that." Yeah, let's do that. So we do that, and sure enough, it does. It doubles within about 3 months, maybe a month after it's doing 3 times as well, and then it's 4, and then very quickly it starts growing and growing. And then we did that for about almost 2.5 years, because the channel's about 4 years. And then finally we just rented a studio space and moved into the studio. When I say just, I mean, we're talking about like a week. It's not even a week ago we moved in. We moved in, set everything up, painted the back wall red, set everything up, and the next morning at 10 o'clock, our first podcast showed up.
Yeah.
And you know, no furniture, but just the basic studio that I have is all that's there. All the walls are on rollers. Like I built these walls in my garage. I call them monoliths. And you know, put the foam padding on them and everything. They're on wheels, and I just wheeled them up into a U-Haul, 6 of them, and wheeled them out. We brought my desk, popped it down, put the lights on, bam. You can't even tell it's any different than the podcast studio that I had in my living room. It looks almost identical. And all those walls were on wheels too.
Yeah.
So just wheeled everything up, but these are nicer. I figured I wanted, because the ones before in my living room, if you looked at them from behind, you could tell it was like a fake wall. And these are nice. They look.
Can you imagine the conversation Colby had? Like, let me reenact it.
To his wife?
Yeah. What's his wife's name? Can we say that?
Molly.
All right, I can do this.
Yeah.
Hey, Molly. I know I have a good job now. I'm making probably close to 6 figures, and eventually I'm going to get promoted, and you know we're going to have a great life. We're living very, very well middle class. But I met this guy. His name's Matt. He spent the last bigger portion of his adult life just lying to everybody with synthetic identities, and he stole millions of dollars, and his whole life has been a fraud. But he came to me with a great idea and needs me to work for free for him, and he's eventually going to pay me. And we're going to do a podcast together about crime. He lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. He's painting on the side. But I think it's a great idea, Molly.
I was living in a rooming house when the first conversation. Yeah. I was moving.
So, Molly, I just want you to give me your approval for me to quit my great job and just go work for free for this con artist.
And Molly said, absolutely. Absolutely.
You think that's how it went?
It actually, I think it did, because we've had dinner with them recently. and they've been together. He was a kid. He was like 28 years old. Just had a newborn baby, his wife, and they're very, very nice people.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like I don't think I've ever heard Colby cuss. And I think they've been together since
his days have to be fucked up with you then.
He's never been around any of these people. And what's so funny is now all of his friends will call him to say, hey man, this is what happened with so-and-so and such. What's going to happen? He goes, well, I don't know. It depends on if it goes state or federal. Because if it goes federal, he'll tell you knows like everything. And then they're like, does this happen? He's like, nah, not in federal prison. That's not really a thing. But if he goes to state.
He's become an expert.
He's an expert. It's hilarious. This is this clean-cut middle-class, kid that now knows everything about crime.
Yeah. But let me talk to you about keystering.
Yeah, exactly. Hooping it, putting it in his prison purse.
Yeah.
And so his friends, they just think, well, here's the problem with Colby says. The problem is, he said, all I think about is YouTube. He's like, so I've got to a point now where he said, I have very few interests other than some sports. My friends can only talk to me about sports and YouTube. He said, that's it. It's all he thinks about. He's like me. It's all he thinks about. So he's the greatest guy. But I do think that is because that's how he said. He's like, no, we'd already discussed it, and she knew I was unhappy, and she knew I wanted to do this, and she, and I think she's got a pretty good job. She's like she's a therapist, and she works for the state, partially for the state, and partially for a private drug treatment program, I think, and so she's got a decent job, and they don't live high on the hog. They live very, very frugally, right? Like they're not spending money. They don't have car payments. They're not doing any of that. Like they're not out there trying to prove to everybody that they're ballers.
Yeah. Well, that probably made it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I just remember the conversation when I jumped into real estate well over a decade ago, and I had $10,000 left in an account. First property went good. And then I had to go to the wife. A couple months later, the second property I bought burned to the ground. 2 days later, didn't have any insurance on it. And I just remember that conversation.
God!
And the conversation was simple. I said, listen, I know that I just used my last $10,000, right? And I was making okay money, but I wasn't good with money, right? Like at my regular job. I said, but I want to go all in on real estate. And I remember saying, what the fuck?
And she thought, because you've had such great success so far.
She's like, a building just burned down 3 days ago, Todd. I said, yeah, but I just think it was a sign, right? Like I need to go all in. And she agreed to it. So, I mean, I see how some crazy things happen, but now I think back and that's why I'm like, why the fuck did you agree to that?
Yeah, what were you thinking?
I mean, it was a good decision. You bought into
I
it.
understand, but it could have just as easily been a bad decision. I love there's a TikTok going around where this guy goes up to this, he's talking to people in the street, and he goes up to this woman and he says, do you have any advice for people? And she said, yes. She said, just because you never give up on something doesn't mean it's going to work out. You know, I thought that's perfect.
Yeah.
You know, oh, don't give up. Don't give up. It'll work out. No, it may not.
Sure. It doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
But for you, let me ask you this, and we'll start wrapping up. Was there a moment, like a distinct moment in your mind where you said, this is going to be my redemption?
No. No. I've never thought that. What happened is that I feel like I'm trying to make a living and being a decent person, and you know that's not necessarily easy for me. And so I've just continued to try and do the right thing. And to me, it's like I got out of prison, and I everybody acts like I took a bunch of risks, but I didn't feel like they were risks. I felt like in prison, I realized that none of these people care about me.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean the inmates. I mean the people on the street that nobody cares about. You know, my mother cares about me. That's it. You know, it was my mom. That was the only person that really came to see me religiously and supported me. And that nobody really cared about me. And that all my old friends were never really friends. They were just business people that were using me to make money. You don't care about me. And that when I went to prison, they were all gone. And the only friends that came to see me in prison were friends that I had before these are friends when you're like 15. That guy came to see me. Sure. He never was a part of my crimes. He never made a dime off of me. He came to see me. You see him? He has nothing but just a friendship. Everybody else wasn't a friend. And then I got out and I realized that also I didn't need those friends. I always, you know who Gary Vee is? Mm-hmm. I love Gary Vee's saying, he's like, you're trying to make all of this money so that you can spend a bunch of money proving to a bunch of people that you're like a baller. You're trying to spend a bunch of money and make a bunch of money to impress a bunch of people that don't even like you. Like you're trying to make a bunch of money and flash it, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to post this on Instagram, put me in the private jet, me in my Ferrari, me in this, to impress a bunch of people that really hate your guts. They don't really like you, and I realize that. You.
Huh? So they don't give a shit about us or you or anybody. Like,
and
that's
I knew that. I realized that in prison. I realized that in prison. I realized here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out. I'm going to live very humbly. I'm going to be appreciative. And I'm not going to spend a bunch of money, and I'm going to be safe, but I'm going to do something I love.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not going to do it for money. All I wanted this channel to do was pay my bills.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted it to.
Well, it's doing much more now.
Yeah, it is, but I'm still doing exactly if it wasn't, I'd still be doing the exact same thing. If it wasn't doing well, nothing would change.
Right.
Well, it is nice to get it out of my living room because I don't interview a lot of violent people. Like I'd say I've interviewed 5 people that have maybe murdered somebody. But every once in a while you're talking to some guy who's describing, cutting up a body in a tub, and I realize like my wife is taking a nap upstairs.
Yeah. And she just got out of the tub.
And she's, And I'm thinking to myself, and listen, that guy in particular was actually a great guy. Mm-hmm. He'd gone to prison. Like he tells that story, and it torments him. And I never once feel concerned about him. But you don't know what someone will be like in 6 months if they get on heroin.
Yeah, for sure.
And so
anything can change,
right? And it's not. And here's the other thing. When you're with someone, you're married. I'm not concerned about me. I'm concerned about my wife. You get, it's like, I don't mind, like if something happens to me, well, that's a decision that happened. I brought that on myself and I'll deal with that.
Yeah, I feel the exact same.
I'm doing something stupid that may affect my wife who's done nothing but make the mistake of marrying me. And so, yeah, so things are going really well, and I'm having a really good time. And I think your story was about redemption, and I feel like I'm just trying to make a living. But what I find is I get people all the time that send me emails, and it's literally it's I say at this point it's up to every other day. Every day I get the email and I get the Instagram, bro, your stuff's amazing, you're this or this. But every other day I get the email that says your story is inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man.
That's enough to keep you rocking, man.
Yeah.
You know, and it feels better than anything. And I'm sure that I don't get as many as you do. But the times where you do get that message from somebody, I just had one recently. A couple years ago, started mentoring somebody, not even officially, just giving them advice, being a nice guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they watch my shit. And he sent me, he said, hey, I finally make enough money in real estate to quit my nursing job and go full time with this. And I want to tell you, it's mainly because of you, and you gave me the inspiration to kind of do that and the courage to do that. And I read that and I said, you know what? Like, all the money that I've made,
right,
everything else that I've accomplished in life, that shit right there felt better than any of it. You know, and I'm sure you have that feeling from time to time.
I actually don't like it's, I'm sure with you, like you didn't answer those questions in the hope to get something in at all.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, no, you got to do this. Like, I'm just trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
You know? And then you hear something like that, and you're like, oh, wow, it's a lot. It means a lot more than just answering some questions.
Yeah. All right, last question for you. You can answer with one word, or you can give me a description. Doesn't matter to me. Is it hard for you to not go back to what you were doing before that ended you in prison?
It isn't now. It's not hard now, but it was hard the first couple years.
Yeah.
Because the first few years when I was really struggling, that was hard. That because I was constantly thinking, man, I could do this, or man, I could
see a homeless guy in the corner. You're like, I might have a survey in my pocket.
Definitely.
Well,
Definitely
I love your story. We just kind of met here recently, but I'm proud of what you've done, man. And you're an inspiration for a lot of people, and especially a lot of people that have went down the path of going to jail or prison or whatever. Like, you are a prime example of what you can do with your life, even after you face some of the hardest adversity. Even if you brought the adversity on yourself, you're a story of redemption, a story of being able to really turn things around. And you're doing well, man. You got a lot of big things. You've written a lot of books. People can go to your YouTube channel, Matthew Cox, Inside True Crime podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Do you want to give a teaser on a new book that's coming out? You don't have to. I'm just giving you the opportunity.
No. Let's wait. Let me wait.
We're going to wait on it. Okay.
Well, I wrote a book about Garth Brooks being a serial killer, but it's a satire and it's funny, and it's all based on Tom Segura's. It's based on Tom Segura's him making jokes about how he thinks that Garth Brooks is a serial killer and things that he's heard, and it's kind of like a social media rumor that's out there, and I actually wrote a whole book about it.
What's the title of the book?
The title of the book is Friends in Low Places.
Friends in Low Places?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Bodies in Low Places. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I don't know why I said, no, because that's the song, Friends. It's based on the Friends in Low Places. The book's called Bodies in Low Places. And it's just us looking into the accusation. Is Garth Brooks a serial killer?
Yeah. I love it. I'm excited to read it. If there's anybody out there who wants to connect with you, what's the best place for them to go? Or where do you suggest they go to kind of start hearing about your journey, or
you could go to whatever. You could go to my channel. It's my stories on my channel, but I've been on Lex Friedman. I've been on a bunch of big podcasts. But yeah, you could go to my channel and subscribe. And there's actually told my story, my whole story from beginning to end is like 20 hours.
Yeah, you have like 25, something like 25 parts on there about your story, right? On your podcast?
Yeah, but no, we've got it all in one.
Oh,
it's a 20-hour podcast of me talking about from the beginning all the way through.
Gotcha.
It's insane.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming into Dayton, Ohio. I don't know why the hell you came here, but you live the Midwest dream here with us for a few days, and
It's a nice little place.
I can't wait to continue watching your journey, man. So keep doing your thing.
All right.
Till next time, guys.
Hold up, why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, now hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets, cause we know where we at, we know we top there. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here, ain't stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future, but see profit here. Wait up.